Yeah, I think the relationship between rhythm, body movement is so incredibly key. At least to how I want to feel in the world, you know?
Hey, everybody, so excited about this conversation with Geneva Harrison, percussionist, drummer, producer, composer, and artist herself. She shared so much wisdom about rhythm and cultural practices across different rhythms, and also the space in between notes, the push and the pull. She's working with all these amazing artists like SF Bay Area's Magic Orchestra, which was supporting Pop Up Magazine on their national tour cycles, the new Deco Ensemble, and Bamba, who she's on the road with, making incredible music. We talked about Brazilian music. We talked about all the different styles and what it's like to be, making music accompaniment for dancers and mixed media collaboration. Just a fascinating conversation. Cannot wait to share it with you. Before we do, I'd like to introduce our title sponsor, DistroKid. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists get to keep 100% of royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music onto Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all of the major streaming services. I use it, and you can get 30% off at distrokid.com/VIP/love-music-more to get started today. Be sure to download the mobile app on iOS and Android that lets you edit your release metadata on the go, be able to publish new music, send split codes, check your balance, and you can sign up today with 30% off at distrokid.com/VIP/love-music-more, all one word. Enjoy the conversation. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Love Music More. I am Scoobert Dubert, and I am joined with Geneva Harrison. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I think the thing that I want to dive into first is Brazilian music, because I've been listening to a lot of Gilberto Gil, and it just puts me in like the right place. And I don't know enough about like why it does the things that it does to me. Like I want to understand the cultural reasons. I want to understand like the rhythms, and I also want to understand kind of your relationship to it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first I have to like throw the caveat out there that I am no scholar, certainly no authoritative voice on Brazilian music by any stretch, but I do love it a lot, and I've been listening to it for a very long time. I mean, that's, Brazilian music is such a wide
Yes.
range of music styles. It's constantly evolving. It's really incredible and overwhelming how much there really is. And, while I have studied Brazilian music, it is, I just gotta throw that caveat out there. I am not the be all voice, but I can tell you how I feel about it. For me, I started listening to Brazilian music when I was fairly young. Our household was like kind of always full of jazz and Latin and Brazilian music growing up. And probably in my like late childhood, early adolescence, I really started gravitating a lot towards, Latin and Brazilian music, which is around the time that I started playing percussion as well. So, those kind of, I think maybe go a little hand in hand because there is so much percussion in both of those styles of music. There's so much rhythm. So it's just kind of this endless world of possibilities and explorations, rhythmic explorations, and, different cultural significances behind all of it, which I'm still downloading in my life. I mean, there's just so much. And I think, something about Brazilian music in particular that I think feels so good is there is a sense of this freeing but calming but super energized feeling about it. And I think that there's something extremely dreamy about it, whether it's something that's melancholy or really joyful. On either end of that spectrum, there's just this very dreamlike kind of quality to it. I think there's probably a lot of cultural reasons why it feels that way, or what the affinity is. I don't know. But I can say that I went to Brazil for the first time. I can't believe it took me this long to go, but last year. And that feeling is very palpable,
Mm.
at least in Rio, where I was around a lot of music, like at all times. That feeling is very palpable in the real, like around you. It's not just when you're listening to music, it's just kind of there, it's present. I think if we wanted to get down to the anthropological sort of breakdowns of what it is about Brazilian music, samba is kind of at the root of so much Brazilian music. And the cultural and like kind of, I don't know if societal is the right word, but the cultural significance of samba is that it is a kind of music that came out of resistance to colonial powers. Essentially, it was born out of slaves escaping their plantations and finding a home where they could be with one another, to create and express themselves musically. That was a big part of it. So a lot of the root of Brazilian music is sort of this kind of righteous reclaiming of joy.
Mm.
And I really think that that is so intrinsic to what Brazilian music is. And so I think there's kind of this expression and this outcry of really claiming joy, and you know, I think turning something that is very painful into something to celebrate, life, being alive, being with your people. And, I mean, music is such a great channel for all of that. And I also think that, a very special, beautiful thing about Brazilian music in particular is it takes tradition and root of tradition, and is also constantly innovating and recreating, and without losing that honor for tradition, but also keeping things fresh and new and reflective of the current time. I mean, I think there's kind of like an active, it feels like there's like a very active like desire for that, or intention for that. So yeah, in a nutshell,
That's great.
some of the things I really, really love about Brazilian music.
Yeah, and I find it so fascinating too to think about, yeah, like you have history and then energy and then you have music, where it's like music is part of all of that, separate from all of that. It's both. And I think that's a beautiful, interesting thing of like you get to have kind of a conversation with ancestors, with your history, with your place. And sometimes I worry that we step outside of that a little bit too far when we're thinking like very commercially, or we're thinking, not to say that commercial music's bad. I make a lot of it. But sometimes it's easy to lose focus on like kind of what you're doing, what you're engaging with, the shoulders of the giants that you're standing on,
Mhm.
because you're just trying to like make something that could fit on a Spotify playlist.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you. I think I think in our modern worlds, I think there's a bit of that push and pull
Yeah.
of what keeps you in tune with what you really connect to in music at its core, or even, what brought you to it in the first place, and how do you continue to reconnect with that, versus, also needing to make a living, and trying to find those opportunities where you can do that. Yeah, it's a bit of it's a beast to grapple with in the career as a musician. And then it's also a blessing to have the opportunities to continue to engage with the things that really get you going. Or even finding those spaces within commercial opportunities. To find those moments where you can feel that connection, or maybe put it into what you're doing, even if it's just a moment. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm super curious too about the heartbeat of music, because like people are probably familiar with a metronome or a click track, but I don't know if everybody's familiar with like the other types of heartbeats that are beyond just like click, click, click. click, like talking, we're talking samba, we're talking like clave patterns, like things like that, where, yeah, the beats can be a little bit less rigid, or you can have something else at the center. Could you explain, maybe like ELI5 style?
I mean, I find that so interesting in a couple of different capacities. There's sort of like the one example of, recording not to a click and maybe live with a band versus recording to a click, and maybe overdubbing and stuff like that. Those bring very different, I think, not just essences, but they can really guide how you are perceiving the music, and feeling the music in the moment. I mean, I think anything having to do with timing, rhythm, stuff like that can really plays with your very in the moment presence with the art, you know. And so there's that one example or layer of how we interface with the heartbeat of music, because it can be very elastic. And then there's also, in some musical traditions, or types of music from other parts of the world, take samba, for example, great example. The heartbeat is the surdo, which are the low bass drums. And, all of that music, if you're talking about traditional, or like Rio style carnival, samba, you know, while there might be, an acknowledgement of tempo markings and stuff like that, or certain, ranges of tempo that you ideally want the music to fall into. You might have someone leading the hipiki section with a call to bring everyone in. And once everyone comes in, those 150, 200, 250 drummers, once they all come in, that music is flying. Like, that hipiki player might call something off right here at this tempo, and once everyone else comes in, it's going.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that I think, some people might scoff at, being like, oh, they're rushing. But that's not, that's actually, it's part of it. That urgency and that excitement is part of it. And that's for everybody involved, the audience, the musicians, it's, the dancers. It's an explosion, it's a blast of energy, and you just go along for the roller coaster ride. And I think that's so key to the experience, because, I mean, yeah, carnival sambas 50, 60 years ago were much slower. There was a very different kind of experience in that regard. There's different reasons why it's faster nowadays than it was then, aside from people just getting excited. But but yeah, I think that elasticity, that, lack of needing to adhere to very, rigid timing or tempo, I think brings a very different experience along. I mean, then, we can also talk about elasticity within just
Mm.
a particular feel. Yeah, I mean, you can have very literal kind of senses of feeling rhythm, and then something that I think is really beautiful, and I think I'll always be, challenging myself to master in my lifetime, is the ability to push and pull, even the idea of a 16th note, a triplet, a quintuplet, where certain partials can fall, without overthinking the literal, rhythmic breakdown of it, and doing it with feeling. I think that, drummers like Chris Dave,
Yes.
production like Jay Dilla, these monsters of music that we have, I think all been trying to emulate for
Totally.
for a good 15, 20 years at this point.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I think that kind of musicality as a drummer in particular, is really like the chef's kiss. And we don't have as much of the history that like a saxophonist, or a flute player, a violinist or something might have, with the years and years and years of examples rhythmic push and pull that maybe reflects a vocal performance, in a way that like seemingly drummers can't do, but of course we can. It's just I think it's a bit of a different, I mean, we kind of have to break the rules a little bit, I think, to a certain degree to get to that point, Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question. I kind of meandered around there a little
liked
bit.
it. I liked it. Just to reflect some of it back, I think it's fun to think about drums like vocals, because a lot of people like think of drums as the grid, which they can be, and that's great too. But like steady drum machine style, boop, 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 like blocks. But it is fun to be able to, especially as a percussionist, because a lot of what you're doing is pushing and pulling and like conversing with the other percussionist or with the drum kit in a way that is not necessarily like everybody's falling on the exact same beat at the exact same time, because that's so square. You're trying to dance with each other.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm definitely drawn more and more to that as time goes on.
Yeah,
I mean, I've been drawn to it for a while, but that concept of even just like in a band, everyone kind of finding their flow together and what that kind of means for that particular group of people or that particular, set of music, or, and like, while I do certainly value, putting your time in practicing and getting as good at your instrument as you can be, or, getting the song down as tight as it can be. I think there's so much room for what that means that doesn't need to be bound so tightly to like perfect, rigid time. I mean, it really depends on what the music is, right? But in some styles of music, the guitarist really needs you to just be locked in hard.
Totally true.
You know what I mean? Or whatever it is. But yeah, I think that's that's the most, I think, human expression of the collective experience within a band. That's a beautiful place, I think, to be. I've gone in and out through my music career of being on both ends of that spectrum. Some gigs playing with a click, others like definitely not wanting to, because it just kind of kills something a little bit, or you end up being in a different headspace, that takes you out of that organic sort of feeling or development of the musical motifs and whatnot.
Totally. And sometimes even when you're playing with a click, it's fun to do a click that is not just a standard quarter note or does something that's a little bit different. Like one of the things I love doing, if I'm like, say for example, if I'm starting a song on guitar and I don't want it to be a demo, I want to actually use that guitar, is like figuring out either drum beat or some sort of weird click or some sort of other like rhythmic element, like a ostinato synth kind of thing, even if I'm not going to leave that in the song, but just something to like kind of like groove against and play with, rather than just being like, I'm in this sterile little box and I have to play pop rhythms and it's all going to be quantized anyway. Like it does. It unlocks something even psychologically. Metronomes are great. Practice with them a lot, but like when you're trying to create and lay down something that's actually going to be on a record, I don't know. I think it's more fun to not more than do it,
Yeah,
practice.
yeah. Oh, definitely. I think especially when you're starting from, guitar, bass, it's really, really nice to have some sort of rhythmic ostinato, figure of some, even if you end up scrapping it.
Totally.
And you end up putting something completely different in there. It's nice to just have some kind of loop going, and I find that having like a rhythmic loop of some kind is very helpful. It gives you that bed to just kind of riff off of,
Yeah, totally. And like you're saying, the push and pull, sometimes I like to do like a long hi-hat pattern or something that I'm playing against, even if there's no kick or snare, where that's human. That's like you feel that hi-hat kind of doing this, and then the entire song kind of does this with the hi-hat. Then you just have something to listen to and like oscillate with. And you can always layer on electronic drums later if you wanted to like snap it to grid heavy, but then the whole band has kind of got this little sway to it that even if the hi-hat like goes away, having that maintain, I don't know, there's just the little moments that I think they add up and make you move,
yeah I totally agree. It's pretty, I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all that it does impact us so much. We do have
Yeah.
our own internal rhythm, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, we
Right.
do, and it oscillates depending on our mood and, you know, like our heartbeat,
How
our
much
heart
sodium?
rate. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, totally. How much sleep you did or didn't have, maybe
Yeah.
how many drinks you had the night before,
Yeah.
whatever it might be. Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that affect our own perception of life, and a lot of that I do think is very much, I mean, think about like, you know, if you're trying to process how you feel about something, you know, or how something has made you feel, I think one of the most acute things that you can express about how you physically feel has to do with your heart rate. You know what I mean? Like if you're nervous about something, your heart is going to race. If you're like, you know, I don't know, feeling really exhausted, you're maybe gonna be like, your heart rate might be extremely slow but heavy, you know, and those are things that I think we're actually more attuned to than we realize. And I think that really reflects how we feel. It's affected by how we react to certain experiences, and then bouncing off of aural, you know, cycle is a whole other layer with that, you know. But
Agreed.
yeah.
No, I totally agreed. And all of those things, they all work together. And I mean, it's like, I think one of the things that I've been trying to work on is sometimes my diaphragm or whatever gets like excited, like, cause I'm in a moment. And so your heart
Mm.
rate elevates a little bit, your diaphragm constricts a little bit, and then you don't have your full access to like communication, singing, whatever. But at the same time, those moments are special because you're excited, like you're flowing in something, you're trying to make something happen. And it makes me think of the increasing pace of drums, where it's like you're on the edge, this precipice of something, and even though it might not be technically perfect in the same way that like I might not be able to hold as long of a note, you might hear something in the vocal cords that might be like you might sympathetically catch that excitement.
Yeah, sure. Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think that's such a special part of, you know, singing and vocals is just, I mean, that extremely vulnerable uh and very nuanced. It's a very nuanced instrument that
Yeah.
is totally based off of our relationship to the human voice. You know, I mean, you know, everyone has, most people have a relationship to the human voice that they don't, I mean, that relationship doesn't necessarily exist with other instruments in that way. So it allows for a very, you know, rich palette of, you know, what can affect you know, the audience's perception of it and everything. Very cool. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think in that sense, it is one of the most fun, challenging, and exciting things to practice as a drummer is
Hmm.
like transcribing vocals,
Oh,
or
cool.
like and applying it to drums or percussion perhaps, you know. I mean, I think hand drums especially in a lot of ways have always felt uh like the closest, you know, the closest thing to like a human voice, as far as, you know, like a percussionist, a hand drummer taking a solo or something. There's something about it, even though it's very, you know, transient heavy, it's very attack heavy, and it's very pulsed. There's something that, you know, in it that can, I think, kind of tap into some sort of vocal expression emotively in a lot of ways. But yeah, but they, like practicing and transcribing vocal
Hmm.
lines, melodies, rhythms can really, I think, expand your musicianship as a drummer. And I think there's some singers who are even better than others to transcribe, but because it's really interesting where vocalists will place things
Yeah.
against the
Oh yeah.
beat. You know what I
Totally.
mean? Yeah, and if it's a really good challenge for a drummer to get off of that grid thing so much and to really play musically, and that kind of exercise will like force you to really like get loose, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really cool. I've heard that kind of stuff from different drummers of organic things to transcribe, which I always find so fascinating. I love the drummer and percussionist mind because I try to be, but I'm bad. I'm a guitarist. But like one of my drummer friends, he was like transcribing like the washing machine, just like these like random things like bird song rhythms. I'm like, what are you
Oh
doing? And
yeah.
he's like, believe me, like this matters. I'm like, this is so fascinating. Such an interesting way to like just take the input of the world. And then I started putting like bird song in my songs and stuff, not just because it's cute, but because it's like it's organic, it's different, it loops in a weird way. I don't know, and it's evocative.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I think it really stuff like that like really just pushes you to conceive of rhythm in different ways
Okay.
because like bird songs, for example, I mean, I don't know, I'm not a what is it,
A birder,
ornithologist
a
or
bird watcher. Oh yeah, I don't know that fancy word.
or whatever it is. Like each bird has its kind of set of melodies that it speaks, right, or that it sings. And usually there aren't like necessarily a ton of pitches that they hit. There's like a few different pitches. And then there's a certain set of rhythms that those typically fall under. But the construct of their sentence or their paragraph or whatever it is that they're creating or expressing, is not, it's not following a click. It's not there's it's just little kind of spurts and interjections here and there of these different melodies, rhythmic melodies. And I think, yeah, being able to stretch beyond the grid, and to really take your rhythmic sensibility, I think with confidence as a drummer, that stuff can really help you. And then taking that and applying it to the grid is groove. Well, man, we could get
We could
super
talk.
deep on this.
Yeah, but I think these are the fun things because so I have some people in my life that always tell me like you should make really simple music, and I'm like, you don't really understand what that means. Whereas like I get where
Right.
you're coming from, like simple music, successful music. Like I understand the through line, but it's like a lot of this quote unquote simple music is so complicated, or it's got so much little nuance of like talking about
Hmm.
groove, like the dynamic fluctuation of just a 16th note hi-hat, even if there's no feel change throughout the entire song, to be able to hook the listener and have that 16th note hi-hat riding along with the vocal and everybody playing together, even if it's got three chords. I don't know. I think that groove complexity, even for this quote unquote simple rhythms, is just,
Mm.
I don't know, just underappreciated, maybe in the popular sense, but that's part of the reason why I think that pop music deserves to be in the pantheon of all the other things, because there's a lot of quiet complexity.
Oh man, yeah, I think that is sort of the secret sauce of really good pop music is the subtle nuance of variation and change, maybe unexpected sort of even like harmonic information that's happening. Like, this isn't necessarily my world, but I find it really fascinating when you either dissect like a really good pop song or you dissect pop song and find all these layers behind, the curtain of even just like a really subtle percussion kind of thing, for example, that is so faint in the mix that you do not even recognize it. But then if it's taken out, you're like, whoa, this feels a little more flat. And you wouldn't have known why if you hadn't kind of peeled the curtain back.
Yeah.
And I,
Yeah.
I think that really good pop music has that in there, and that is sort of the secret weapon of it is, how do you add these elements, these voices, these moments that don't take over, to they don't take over the mix, they don't take over the focus, and are still adding a lot. Like I think that's such a fascinating thing to me. And
Totally.
I was hanging with a friend a few years ago, this guy Luke Melman. I don't know if you know
Yeah, I
him.
know him. He's great. He's been on the
Yeah,
pod.
Luke, oh man, he's the best. Talk about pop master,
Totally.
like
Totally.
I don't remember what we were I don't remember if we were recording something that I was playing percussion on, or maybe he was helping me with a mix or something like that. And I had, it was just like this wall of sound, super fun, cool thing that I was working on. But he sat down with me and I was just like, what would you do? Like, I'm just curious, like, how you would treat this mix. And it was really interesting to see what he did with it. And one of the things was he took some of that rhythmic information and he really dialed it down, which at first I was like, oh no, I'm going to miss it. And then I was like, no, actually, yeah, genius. I mean, he tucked it away and it's still there, but it's not like in your face, slamming everything. And like, it's okay, it'll still be there. It doesn't need to be in the forefront. And it created so much more depth in the mix. Things were placed in such an incredible way that it helped you to experience the song even better.
Yes.
I find that also just fascinating, the mixing process and how that can change that can really like affect obviously the perception of the song, but just like whether a song is good or not in some ways,
Totally.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt this very important broadcast, but it's time for one more advertisement for myself for this podcast. What I'm asking for is for you to rate it 5 stars, share it with your friends. This is like the most important thing for this podcast to grow. So if you want to do this, you go onto the podcast screen, right? You click on the ... on Spotify. Under there, it says rate show, and you go and you click it 5 stars. If you could do that for me, that's the best way for the algorithms and all this stuff to share it out with the world. I know that it's a lot to ask, but if you could please just hit those 3 dots and then a 5 star, it would really help us out and helps us, get the word out and spread the love of music. So thank you. If you're listening on YouTube, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you so much. And here's the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
No, it's amazing. And just like it is, so much of mixing is focal point. Like, you can do whatever you want to sounds and compression and stuff like that. But like ultimately, it's mixing is deciding what is the loudest thing right now. What is the listener focusing on? What's foreground? What's background? Where are things placed in the width? Like one of my favorite things is like the Beatles super loud tambourine that would come in and just like smack you upside the face, and like you have that contrasted with like the tiniest little egg shaker. These those little moments you can apply to modern music. I think have those like sparks, like you're saying, like the unexpected. It's something that's simple, maybe like a really simple tambourine part, but the volume or the just like general sonics of that simple thing end up elevating or focusing the song in a really fun way. But yeah, it's fun. You just have all these little levers with mixing. You have all these levers with music, and then it's choosing like what are you going to deploy, what are you going to use at a given moment, what's the journey of the song, because it's a linear art form, and I think that's so cool. And the thing that I really want to talk to you about is how do you dance to the music? Because I think that's like a missing part. And one of my favorite things, I think, as a producer, as an artist, whatever, so even if it's not has a traditional dance associated to it, it's like there's always a part of your body that you're in pop music at least, or in whatever, like music with a pulse, but most music has a pulse. Like there's a part of your body that you're going to naturally move in a certain way from the song. And are you like, I don't know, like, do you like that? If not, how are you going to change the rhythm? I think that's like a conversation that I want to have more,
Yeah, big time. I mean, again, you're talking to a drummer, so dance is, I mean, that's, that is like ancient connection is, vocals, drumming, and dancing, those are just like the 3 most innate kinds of expressions we have, even if you're just clapping. It's funny, I grew up dancing. That was like something that I did as a kid. I started at a very young age tap dancing, like at the age of like 2 or 3. My mom started me hella young.
Wow.
And my young childhood was full of dancing, so you asked a great question for me, because it's pretty foundational. I don't think I would have been a drummer if I hadn't started as a dancer. Piano was my first instrument, but I think, I think I pushed towards percussion at a certain age, but around that time I was listening to a lot of Latin and Brazilian music. How you want your body to feel amidst that is pretty crucial to like, what that song is going to sound like. I mean, sure, yeah, I definitely am drawn to styles of music that are all about moving.
Totally. But I think that's part of what's missing is like we always talk, or in the popular culture, there's a lot of conversation of like, what does the song make me feel? But like equally or maybe more important is like, how does it make me move? And I think that's where the like, make it sound more green kind of comes from, is it's not like the classic funny note to a mix or whatever. I think a lot of that is just trying to find the language of movement and like culture and like where it's taking you, and so you throw it out like with a random color or effect. But a lot of that is like, hey, it's not making me it's not necessarily an emotion that I'm trying to get you at, like more happy or sad. It's like I'm trying to find something else that makes my body move, that makes me viscerally react in a way that isn't just emotional in the like verbal sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is why I love, this idea of kind of elastic groove,
Yeah.
elastic rhythm, so much, is because I have found spaces where music like that makes me move in really interesting ways that I enjoy expressing my physical self as. And I think that's maybe what super, super drew me towards like Jay Dilla and Chris Dave's playing and a lot of hip hop and beat based music. Is it's so fun to dance to
Yeah.
because it breaks open kind of these new like parts of your body that can move along with those sounds. What a rich, colorful way to express, Yeah, I think the relationship between rhythm, body movement is so incredibly key, at least to how I want to feel in the world, and I mean, as a drummer, I will never feel as good about what I'm doing as when I'm making people dance.
No.
Like if people are moving, then that's all you need, like that's like pretty crucial. If people aren't moving, then you probably got to go practice a little more or something, I don't know,
Right.
sing this to myself, but
Yeah. Well,
like,
you
oh,
know,
maybe that's not the groove for this one. I don't know.
sometimes it depends on where you're playing.
Yeah, this
There's
is
some
this is
cities that
very
are a little
true.
more.
Yeah, it's so true. It is so true. That's man, that's another, I mean, that's another layer to it too,
Yeah.
like what places are kind of, what places are a little more open and free
Yeah.
with moving their body.
Right.
And some places will surprise you. I've had
Oh
some
yeah.
wild shows in the middle of nowhere.
Oh
Like
yeah. Exactly.
some of the best, you're just like, oh, you'd think the people in the city would be a little more rowdy. I definitely, there's certain places that I enjoy playing more than others because of that. It's
Yeah.
just like, oh man, people can cut loose. They're having a good time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've lived a lot in my life in Miami,
Mm.
Florida,
Yeah.
and dance is such a huge part of culture down there. Whether it's from traditional like ends of things or just the nightlife scene there. I think they kind of go hand in hand, maybe in a lot of ways. But there's so much dancing happening,
Yeah.
which really lends to a lot of music centered around dance being
Makes total sense.
pretty prominent. But yeah, it's such a great place. If anyone in the States wants to travel somewhere in the States to go find a lot of that, that's a great place to go.
Sounds great to me. Sounds awesome to me.
Yeah.
As a
Yeah.
percussionist, are you, and also as a dancer, are you watching the dancers, like, especially if somebody's like maybe a professional or like accompanying you? How does that work from your perspective? I know what it's like as a musician. Like I'm watching the drummer, or I'm listening to the bassist, or I'm checking the MDs for cues, or what. Is there a similar relationship to the dancer? How does that kind of look from your chair?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm for me in my experience, I mean, I think it depends on the style of music and maybe what your function is in the music as the musician. I mean, I definitely thrive off of in whatever context if there's kind of like hive motion, if like the
Yeah.
room is going, that certainly is, I think, a pretty like I feed off of that energy. I think with like particular dancers, yeah, it maybe depends on the music or the artistic context. In some styles of Latin music, which I styles that I'm not necessarily like Bomba from Puerto Rico, I barely scratched the surface of any of that stuff. But that's a style of music where the drummer and the dancer are literally cueing each other to play or dance certain things. It's really
So
that the
cool.
dancer is cueing the drummer. Like certain
Wow.
dance moves
Yeah.
cue particular rhythms. So you have to be really quick on your toes with that stuff. I've never done that in personally. I've been shown and taught like some rhythms, but not in the context with the dancer being present. I think that takes
So
like a
cool.
really long time
Oh, I
to
bet.
like get down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
To
you gotta be ready for it, you know?
yeah. Visual communication while
Yeah.
you're doing auditory stuff. Oh, man, that sounds like a ton to juggle.
Yeah, and anticipation.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, for
that's so
sure. I
cool.
mean, yeah. And I mean talk about that sort of amoebic kind of
Sure.
flow that you might have in a band. That is, I think, probably like hella true in
Yeah.
that context, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, I've also seen like some Sabar drumming and Senegalese dance and stuff, and it's kind of similar, sort of similar. I don't know that I don't know at all if there's like certain movements that trigger rhythms or vice versa, but in a lot of, you know, traditional kinds of music where a hand drummer is present with dancers,
Yeah.
there's certainly soloing as a percussionist is very much driven by the dancer in that kind of context. I'm speaking very broadly right now. There are specific examples of this. Some Afro-Cuban music, you know, I believe the Sabar drumming and from Senegal, even in like, you know, samba or some like northern or Bahian styles of music, when a particular dancer's like going off, the percussionist, the soloist is going off, and you're kind of vibing on each other's energy, you know?
Yeah.
You're kind of self-expressing based on each other's, where you're both at having a conversation, you know. The context that I've probably done a good bit of that, like on a performance level, you know, in front of an audience and stuff like that, is actually in the context of like contemporary and modern dance, where, and I've done it in different contexts where there's sort of a very set track of what you're playing to the movement that is, you know, being performed on stage, but the creative process of how you land there is very organic and just kind of like,
Cool.
especially as a percussionist, can be super super fun because it might be very abstract, where you're using color and texture with percussion more so than rhythm per se, to sort of express sound based on the movement.
Yeah.
And then sometimes there might be more kind of rhythmic oriented.
Sweet. Love that.
Yeah, there's so many that's such a broad, again,
Yeah.
abstract, broad
Mhm.
sort of palette to work with. I find that choosing your instruments wisely,
Yeah. Yeah.
choosing your set of instruments so you don't like, I'll always come into something like that with so many options,
Cool.
and then very quickly I'll be like, I can't do all of this. I need to hone it down, you know, like find my palette, you know,
Find your
find
palette.
my yeah, you know, it's like,
I
okay,
do
we're gonna
always
go
get a kick.
pastels here.
I get a kick out of the percussionists that have got like 30 different instruments. Their brain's like, what is that? They got two in each hand and they're going back, going to the conga. It's great.
Yep. Yeah, that's I try to tell myself that as I go along, I get better about not going too ham on that kind of thing. And then sometimes I will show up to a gig with way too much stuff. And I'll just be like, man, I really didn't need like maybe 20 of these instruments, but
That's so
or maybe
cool.
I used this one thing one time, but I'll tell
Totally.
you what, it was worth it.
It was worth it. It was worth it. Who was it? I saw somebody, they performed and they brought out a theremin for one song and they're just like, and then it got wheeled away. I'm like, that is awesome.
Oh my
That is
gosh,
great.
you know. Hey
Yeah,
man,
whatever.
if you're down to bring it, you know.
Yeah, it's like a gong, right? Like you're not gonna play a gong on every song, but
No,
every once in a
no.
while, boom.
That'd be kind of hilarious if you did it the right way every time, but like
Yes.
to just, if there was something kind of tongue in cheek about it, you know.
You're right.
But yeah, I don't know. Do you know this percussionist's name is Ciro Baptista? Do you know this guy?
It's super familiar.
He's played with so many
Yeah.
different people over the
Yeah.
years, but
Okay.
I think probably one of the most common gigs that maybe commercially, like playing with fish.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Awesome.
But yeah, he's an incredible madman of so many different sounds, and the way I haven't seen him with fish, but I have seen him in a couple of other contexts live, sort of in like jazz kind of, like with Jeff Parker and Will Blades, but like in that kind of context, and it's so great because he's so free with how he plays. He'll play groove, but for like a little bit on like one instrument, and then he'll just like switch to another. There's something very flowy and organic and kind of just like, oh man, what's he pulling out of Mary Poppins bag now? Like kind of
Cool.
thing,
Yes.
It's very entertaining. And it's super cool. And he's just floating on his feeling in that moment of like, oh, this would be fun to explore right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. It's so
And
cool.
it's such a great, not enough people do that with percussion, honestly.
Yeah.
I think it's very common that people just kind of like they'll stick to their like, I got my verse, got my shaker,
Yeah.
oh, we're going to the chorus. Okay, I'll play hand drums this time. Maybe next time we go to the chorus, I'll amplify that a little bit with something else. But he's just, man, he's just like on a great stream of consciousness exploration.
Cool.
It's just like it's too good, and he's so good. But yeah, anyway.
It's such a special place, and then also just what percussion can do to the vibe of any groove, elevate it, take it in a totally different place. One of my favorite things ever, ever, ever as a guitarist is soloing with a percussionist, because the
Mm.
amount of ideas that I can come up with just like 10x's, because I have another kind of person to play off of. Like I'm always playing off the drummer, right? And like the bass is kind of the cradling me and moving up and down depending on what I'm doing. But then to have a percussionist, and it's like now I'm fighting this hi-hat and I'm also fighting with this percussionist, and they're changing the texture. Now I can go in a different direction. It's so much more than just like, now we're going to the ride now, which is awesome and satisfying. But it, at least as a soloist, oh my God, so much fun. Completely changes the vibe, and it opens
Oh
up
yeah.
this launch pad to
Oh
all these
yeah.
different places. It's so cool.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so
it's
cool.
such a fun, it's a fun world of
Yeah.
colors, textures, and
Yes.
rhythm. Yeah,
Totally. Totally.
yeah.
Totally.
It can animate things in a
Yep.
very interesting way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. And it's fun. I
Yeah.
don't know. I think part of it's because I've spent so much more time as producer, mixer. I'm came up as a guitarist, but now every time I'm playing, I cannot like leave that behind. am so focused on the bigger picture or the larger perspective. I'm like a little bit less like I want to get technical, I want to show off. It's a little bit more like where is this like amoeba, like you're saying, going, and how can I add a spice of color? Even if it's simple, or if it's complex, I'll do it. But like the percussionist can allow you to see almost like, yeah, you can open a window, or you can go down a bizarre corridor that you didn't know was there, or wouldn't have ever explored without somebody to be like, come on over.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, there's so many tones, so many
Yeah,
wildly different tones.
yeah,
I think every instrument, can lend to that for sure. But obviously, like, we play so many different instruments, and
yeah,
like,
yeah,
and the tones, the multiple tones that you can get from each of those little instruments or whatever, it's just, yeah, it's a very wide world
uh-huh.
cornucopia of sound, and I'm glad it tickles people,
Yeah, totally, it does.
it's not too hard to like get people's attention. It's
Yeah,
also like because it's such a physical thing, people
yeah,
see you doing it. Yeah, and I think that that's something that's so beautiful about percussion as well, is that I think it is, it can be very inviting to people who aren't necessarily professional percussionists. I mean, I
yeah,
think ultimately at the core of it, it's something that we can all do.
yeah.
And I think that that's something that's super cool about it. I
I
mean, I
agree.
feel this way about singing too. I mean, I really do think that everyone can sing to some degree, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And
Totally.
certainly can use their voice. And I think the more we free all of ourselves to realizing that, whether it's singing or whether it's, playing shaker or some drum or something like that, I think I love that I sit in a world where someone can come up to me after a gig and I can be like, yeah, yeah, hit the thing, Like, oh,
Yeah,
I
cool.
don't know, It's like, no,
That's
like
cool.
just hit it, Like literally
Yes.
anyone can like, even if you don't have hands, you could like use your foot and like kick it.
Yeah,
Whatever,
yeah. Right.
Uh, yeah.
That's
Whereas
beautiful.
like maybe playing French horn, that's not the
Yeah,
case.
true. Exactly. Exactly. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And that's also interesting to think about, yeah, the viscerality, or like the accessibility of an instrument, and then the music that it produces sometimes can be influenced by that. Where it's like, yeah, if you have to, the oboe is such a crazy instrument. Like the amount of effort that you have to put in to be able to just have the read and put out sound. It's like, of course you're going to have some pretty elevated, like, really going to think through the notes we're going to play. We're going to write this out because, like, I only have so much time on this read. I don't want to do it again.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's, it's very easy to get discouraged with instruments like that. I think you have to be so persistent to, which, mad kudos to anyone who plays any of those instruments. You really have to dedicate yourself to not the immediate, instant gratification of it.
It's the long road.
Like, yeah, it's really about the long road, and like more power to you, I think, I'm kind of like a vibraphone is such a
so cool.
That's like one of those instruments that, I mean, anyone can have a blast touching, because you really, as long as you're not hitting on the node, it's gonna sound good. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna sound like a vibraphone.
Yeah.
And I think that's like such a fun, cool thing about it. Yeah, it can break down barriers like right away,
Yes, that's so true. That's so true. It's a linear instrument. It's fairly easy to understand, and then unlimited potential with, oh my God, the technical acumen of having 4 mallets is just so cool to me. It's so cool.
Yeah, weird little fingers, weird little appendages,
Totally. It feels like one of those, like, you invented an instrument in a dream, kind of.
Yeah.
Who came up with that? But it works, and it's beautiful, and it's amazing. Yeah.
I don't know. There was a time in my younger years when there was kind of this joke going around about how we needed to make mallet fingers, like things that you could like stick on your fingers, so you could have mallets on each finger.
Oh, that sounds like some downstairs at NAMM with people with the mallet fingers. That sounds great.
Like, why doesn't that exist?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I get it.
You could probably get some really strong finger muscles doing that.
Oh yeah, totally. It's just terrible arthritic hands.
Yeah.
This is a great segue into my favorite little segment of this show. The show is called Love Music More. Segment is called Love Music Why. I want to ask, why do you love music?
Oh wow, I was just having this conversation the other day. I mean, I think about it often, and it evolves over time. But I think, something that's always resonated with me, but is super at the fore of my mind these days. I really love that, not just as someone who is a practitioner of music, but the core of it was from listening to music. I love that music puts me in a place where I can dream. And I think it is so incredibly important in our lives to get away from these systems that force us into a particular way of living our lives how we think we have to live them. And maybe we do because we need to survive. But I really love the space that it can put you in as a listener, as a creator, of feeding into this part of reflecting on yourself and sharing that with other people and experiencing that from other people, having that sort of cyclical sharing, that is happening as listener and creator. I think it's so incredibly tied to who we are as people. And for me, the medium and the art form that really gets me going is music, and I think a lot of people really love music, but I think it's this experiential, in the moment activity that I think really drives home, what's important in our lives. As abstract as that can sometimes be, and as literal as that can be, going to a show, being in a room with a bunch of other people, and being moved together, all collectively connecting to something, maybe for different reasons, but together. Yeah. And that's one large part of it. And always and forever, always, I love the cultural depth of music and learning about people different from me, the same as me, whatever that means in so many different ways. I think that for me, it's the great connector in my life, to, just learning about other people and having empathy for other people. Yeah, I think those are the most important things for me of why I love music, why I think it's important.
So where can people get in touch, hire you, come see you play?
I have a website, genevaharrison.com, super
Easy.
simple.
Yeah.
I also have an Instagram. It's g.neeves, Neevs, and that's the only social media I really use. But either of those places you can find either what I'm doing currently, what I have done. I'm not like the most active on social media as far as posting and stuff goes, but
It's not a bad thing.
but I'm out there. Yeah. It's, talk about push and pull, having to do the thing, but also
Yep.
not wanting it to take up all your time.
Yep.
Yeah, those are probably the best places. I currently live in Phoenix, Arizona. Been here for a little over a year. So if anyone's in Phoenix, hit me up.
Yeah. Love it.
Doing a lot of recording and producing these days and composing and stuff like that. Also touring a bit with a band called Bamba. I've been doing that a bunch for the past like year and some change. So you might see me out on the road with them at some point. And then, yeah, other than that, I'm out and about in different places playing for random different reasons. But
Awesome.
by any stretch, hit me up anywhere. I love connecting with folks, even if it's just to grab a drink or talk, whatever it is. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for the conversation. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks, Goodrich. It's been a pleasure.